Last year, they had seismic testing off of the coast of New Jersey. Now, you might say to yourself, I thought they weren't supposed to do that. Well, they did, and there's more coming. Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. We've talked to Cindy Zipf about this before, Executive Director of Clean Ocean Action, a group that is fighting hard against seismic testing and offshore drilling, we should say.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
People, when they hear one, they think of the other.
Correct.
But this seismic testing that took place had nothing to do with oil drilling?
Well, that depends on who you talk to. The National Science Foundation, when they actually, this is funded in part by the National Science Foundation, the activity that went offshore of New Jersey, and they said that the information would be helpful to the petroleum hydrocarbon industry. But Rutgers, who was leading the studies, said that they were more interested, they were looking solely for evidence of climate change deep in the sediments off the Jersey Shore. That was the purpose, and that was why they were allowed to do seismic testing, because you're not allowed to do seismic testing off the Jersey Shore to look for oil.
Explain what seismic testing is.
Seismic testing is there's multiple sound waves that are pulsed into the deep sea beds, and what they're looking for is evidence of oil and gas reserves.
Or climate change.
Or climate change, in the instance off New Jersey. But the primary purpose, and the one that's, there is a big proposal happening south of New Jersey from basically Cape May Point down to Florida, that is absolutely to look for oil in all the wrong places.
Let's stay with the one that happened off of Long Beach Island for 1 second. Are you suspicious?
I am suspicious of the whole project, and the evidence of what happened afterwards is cause for concern.
So you're claiming they're giving a false reason for doing it? What they're really doing is searching for oil? Well, what's the suspicion?
I think the scientists, the geologists that wanted to do the study from Rutgers are very adamant that they wanted to look for climate change. But the National Science Foundation, who is funding the study in large part, they were specific in mentioning that it would have benefit to the petroleum hydrocarbon industry. So while there may have been the funders of the study may have had different rationales for wanting to do it than the researchers that were doing it.
So it was intended consequences.
Yes, perhaps. And I think what we were arguing was the time of year that they were doing it, in addition to the activity itself, but they were doing it at the worst possible time for marine life off the Jersey Shore.
Was there any effect for marine life?
Yeah, well, you know what? That was the state of New Jersey was very opposed to this. Governor Christie stood up and said he did not want this activity to move forward. And at the end of the day, when it looked like they were going to move forward, because they were in federal waters, they were outside of New Jersey's state jurisdiction, New Jersey said, well, at least provide some scientific funding to determine whether or not there was any ecological harm after and during the activity. And they would not supply those funds. They would not agree to do that research. They could have come back a year, gotten the money, come back a year later. The rocks weren't going to move.
Any empirical evidence of problems?
Well, you know what? It's very curious that within days of the seismic testing starting, there were 4 dead whales found off the coast of New Jersey, and one floated up on the beach of Long Island.
Whales could die from something else.
Yeah, sure they could, and we certainly have seen whales that have been tangled up in some fishing gear, or have died individually. But 4 at one time, I haven't seen it.
And how many years have
I've been around for 35. I've been doing Clean Ocean Action for 34 years, and I've grown up along the Jersey Shore.
So even though you have no proof, you would make the connection.
I just think it's very curious. I just think it's very curious, and I think that it was really beholden on the National Science Foundation and Rutgers to step up and say, you know what, this is a big question. We don't think it's going to cause harm, but this is a very significant scientific question. We're going to hold off for a year. We're going to get the funding together, and we're going to make sure we're going to have scientists everywhere to make sure that there is no ecological harm. That should have been the way it was done, if it had to be done at all. But we think the evidence is not clear on what happened to those marine animals.
And now there's more testing.
And now there's more testing coming up, and testing that's order of magnitudes more significant than what was happening at Rutgers. I mean, we're talking of vast areas of ocean in the mid-Atlantic areas, again, just south of New Jersey, but one blast of this seismic testing, because sound travels so quickly in the ocean, can be heard 1,000 miles away. And we're talking about, again, 250 decibels, this time every 30 seconds, 24 hours a day, and the permits will last up to a year.
Cindy Zipf, Executive Director, Clean Ocean Action. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Larry Menti. That wraps up Jersey Matters for this week. Stick around now for another thing.